Okay, so this is going to be a test to see if this works because honestly, I just do not know. I have been wanting to find creative ways to be able to express my thoughts, share my words, and be able to do whatever I need to do in the meantime. And honestly, I have no idea what strategy is going to work best for me. I'm kind of just winging it. So this morning, I had these words that I had recorded and wanted to share. I kept trying to have it short up to a point in 3-minute segments or less. You know, those YouTube shorts, short, sweet, to the point. I haven't had enough followers or views, I should say, as of yet. It's not like I am mainstream anything or pulling in an audience of however. I just feel like I have a message to share, and I have this driven sense to do so, no matter what it seems like I do to, not do something about it. It just builds and grows. So I have a lot of things that I've written, that I've recorded, and so far, not a productive way in order to have a delivery system to be able to put it out there into the universe. So here nor there. I wanted to jump to the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament, the time of Moses and of journey and travel and just a learning, growing process. God was going through this too, trying to figure out what worked best for the Almighty within the errors and imperfections of humanity. How do you raise a child to live up to the expectations of what should be rather than what is? And do you force upon them the rules that you have decided? Or do you just kind of let them figure it out for themselves? Do you set a guide, a set of instructions like, hey, guess what? These are the steps that we need to take in order to achieve this. Or do you just wipe the earth clean and be like, all right, well, you know what? Let's try again. All right, go forth. It all has kind of happened now, hasn't it? And since all of that time, and Jesus came into the land and then was crucified for what he believed in, what he preached, and what he was talking about. How many times in human history have we persecuted people for their individual beliefs that may have seemed like really scary, frightening, woke, radical, completely taken out people who want to be there for other people and speak of this genuine loving kindness that we should and have for all people? How many times has this actually happened within history? Okay, we have the Salem witch trials. We have the Crusades. Things are just embedded within religion, within political viewpoint, within all of the different technological revolutions. There's almost like a competition effect on who can help preach or say or talk about the best thing to be able to grab the most attention. I find that a lot of people, they are doing so because of what they feel is right and what they feel called to do. However, what happens whenever that is more ego or self-driven for power, position, for that authority, to be able to speak in such high regard, but then not be held accountable for what you're saying? So in the book of Leviticus, man, that's a really hard pill to swallow. We're talking about a time where people were, just wandering, and, Moses was like, hey, the Almighty and I, we talked about it, and this is kind of what you should and shouldn't do. And on Sunday, we keep it holy. We're not going to work on that day. Okay, now we're back to doom and gloom. All right, now if you don't do this, this will happen. So people love to take certain sections of the Bible in order to, have that as a way of reasoning, a compelling way to argue that, hey, no, this is not accepted practice. This is accepted practice. We are all within not following practices of within Old Testament, and by New Testament, those of us who follow the word of Jesus or the word of God, who believe in Old and New Testament and that they are related to one another, that they have connection, they have meaning and purpose. What on earth do we do that whenever that time has come? All right, so to find the kingdom of heaven within rather than finding a narrow pathway to heaven, that is also another hard pill to swallow. Like, how on earth do we do that? What are we doing whenever we're talking about one narrow path versus a path of all ways? You know, Leviticus 18:22, there are many different ways it's been written. There's many different ways that it has been written. And what I feel like I would like to do, I'm not gonna read it again. I'll just share snippets that I already recorded from earlier. But if this works the way I'm hoping, then this will be the video that I put out, because I'm trying to get short and to the point and just, kind of lay it down, put it out there. We'll see what happens, type of thing. Basically, human man should not lay with mankind as they lay with womankind. Okay, back in the day, men who are now seen in their, say, older days, past primary school, so we're talking about college or anyone older than, like, professor, grandfather, great-grandfather age, could marry young and therefore keep their lineage alive and fruitful. There's a challenge with that. We don't really marry people off or have that be a requirement, a succession in family, the ancestry lineage, carry on the family name. We aren't going to marry off our children, because we are going to let our children graduate through high school, hopefully most of them, before they even ponder upon the ability of commitment to one individual for the rest of their life. And back in the Bible, you may have been married off to somebody, but you hadn't even gone through puberty yet. So whenever they're talking about man should not lay with mankind or womankind, they're talking about children, adolescents, youth, people maybe even in their early 20s who are still going through that growth development. So that's how I have read this message. And then, of course, now we jump ahead to, okay, so there's this time of prayer and like what you do on Sunday. And then we're back to this again, where it's like, okay, we're going to ping pong back and forth. Doom and gloom, heaven and salvation, doom and gloom. You get what I'm saying. All right, so 2013, we're talking about, again, man should not lay with mankind, but then it goes a little different with this time. Then it goes as with a woman. It's not womankind, woman. So it's like, yeah, it's being very crystal clear here. And the version that I am speaking on is from the year 1899. Now, this is one of the best older texts that has a lot of the background and history and elements of the Bible that you are just not going to see in other Bibles. It's just going to be right down to the point. There's not going to be no history of, there's not going to be the authors of, who are the foundational components. It's not going to have any of that. It's going to be like, all right, here's your catalog of books. All right, Genesis, here we go. This one, it's like you're a third of the way of the book, and then all of a sudden it just begins, and it's like, yes, all right, I'm ready. Let's read this thing. 4004 BC. So as this book says it, and then 1490 BC, I believe is what I had looked up. And that is such a gap in time that a lot has happened. So we're talking about, like, don't do things with your parents, don't do things with your with your in-laws, with your children, with your children's children, like, hey, you know that those acts are just not right. They're just seen as, we just don't do that with each other. Also, they're talking about lust, things that are done out of human suffering, to be violent against one another, to not do those acts. So when I read those two sections within Leviticus, I see a God who is basically trying to lay down the rule of the land, say, hey, yo, Moses, we got to rein them in. You know, we pulled them out from where they were being persecuted. And, you know, with you and your guidance, you helped set them free. But now we got to make sure that they understand that there is still a law of the land and they must obey it. They must obey me. It's like to not have other gods before me, but my heavens isn't all God, and God is a part of all. So therefore we are all part of that universal creator. But we got to think back to that time. Okay, that was like thousands of years ago, and humans have evolved so much, and we can have access at our fingertips to where we can look up things instantaneously. It's amazing what we're able to do now, and what we could do before is just vastly different. So, and I just want to like look at this. So I'm going to compare this to, well, actually, no, I'm not going to compare. I'm going to get out the big book. Oh my gosh. Big book. All right. Big, very large, huge book. First few pages and the cover we're missing, but it's only on page 3 of the introductory history of the Holy Bible. So yeah, I think it's fine. All right. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, Leviticus, pretty much that entire book is like 1490 BC. And they're also like put into the different like chapters of within those books that has, kind of like a little explanation. So chapter 18 is unlawful marriages and lusts. So this says for 22, thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind, it is abomination. So a lot of people think that this has to do with like, homosexual, same-sex couple, indecency. And, way back then, that wasn't really something that was really talked about or pointed out whenever these texts and everything were collected on the scrolls, compiled and then written by what I want to say is predominantly Caucasian male individuals who then took all these works because it was probably seen as a heresy. Just not heard of at all, not acceptable for a person who is born with a uterus to have a contribution to the book because they were seen or perceived as less than. Unfortunately, there are many times within the Bible that it feels like, hey, guess what? No, you belong to them and you don't have a word of your own. That is not the type of Bible that the New Testament speaks on, that I've read. But as far as I'm concerned with Old Testament, it's definitely a lot more hellfire and damnation type of scare tactic. Guess what? You better go to church and pray about it, or you're going to go to hell. You have to believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior and truly believe in them and mean it. Otherwise, you're going to hell. If you don't say that you believe in Jesus Christ and you truly believe in that person, then you're going to hell. There's just like no other way about it, which is why so many people find themselves leaving their place of worship and their place of faith because of that narrow viewpoint of history that is not and ever present within our current time. So to jump to 2013, so that's talking about the diverse laws and ordinances, but it's also talking about adultery and the obedience required with holiness. Okay, obedience. If a man also lie with mankind, as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Okay, so that's kind of like, all right, do we think a child is old enough to understand the consequences of being persuaded by someone older to do something that is like an impure act? It forces them to grow up faster than they realize. So if an adult man lies with a youthful or child, as he lieth with his woman, okay, that's someone older. That's probably around his age, right? If we want to take it to the time of now, they shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Man, that's some heavy stuff. Then we go back again to 18:22. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as womankind, as with womankind. It is abomination. Okay, first of all, if you are born within the last, say, 80 years or so, you are a part of a pivotal generation of people, of individuals. And if you are 100 years or younger, you are also within that same general region of people who have like grown through the progress and the differences and the revisions, retranslations, etc. through time. So that pivotal 1946, where the word homosexual, sexual deviant, and other verbiage that was included within the Bible, especially within words of Leviticus, very Old Testament, then you're going to church and you don't know what you did wrong because you're just living as yourself, as who you are, who you were born inside to be. The history that you see loves all people, and you may be that open-hearted person. However, you will meet people within your life that are not as encouraging and who are not as accepting and loving and genuinely hearted as you are. And they may feel that they are, and that whoever is delivering this message must be like basically that of a witch. They must be burned at the stake now. They must be crucified, for they obviously do not know what they speak or say. Leviticus talks about a lot of like things that are wicked or unclean, abomination. Talks a lot about nakedness, and that I am the Lord your God. It feels like a very one-way, rigid, jealous, and just very spiteful in a sense God. They're like, no other gods before me, only me. Then by New Testament, there's a little bit of that reflecting, but yeah, to know that all are one and one is all, and that we have all come from the earth and we will return to the earth whenever we pass. It's like it contradicts itself. The kingdom of God is found within you, but through Jesus Christ, that is the only way to salvation and the pathway to God. Okay, well, which way is it then, friend? Is the power within you to be able to walk within heaven? Or do you have to pass on before you can have that sense of awakening and continued sense of renewed faith within the enlightened moments of reflection within a walking, living prayer, which is like a state of meditation? It is just peace of mind and drawing back and living within, I guess, a sense of calm. The reason why I talk about mankind, womankind, and I talk about the variance of a man or woman is because it's all about the interpretation of within Hebrew language, Ish and Zakar. So we're talking about a direct translation of, one word means man, the other means, mankind, or it can mean adolescent or child or youth or infant. A lot of variance there depending upon the context and how it's written. And then when we're talking about womankind, as I see here, okay, does that mean, all right, Old Testament, let's just be presumptuous. All right, let's translate this. Thou man, you shall not lie with children who are male, as you do with female children, because that is seen as more acceptable, because it is an abomination to do that. All right. And then another, okay. So if a man, an adult male, lies with a child that is male, as he lieth with a woman, so someone who's not a child or adolescent anymore, then both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. So basically it's like, hey, guess what? You broke the law. That wasn't right. We hear about acts of adolescents and adults within educational systems or within congregations of faith. Unfortunately, it has happened. It is there. So this verbiage of mankind and womankind, this comes back to the original translations and words of Ish and Zakar and what those words meant within Hebrew language. To be able to translate that into Old English and then to all the variations that we have now, it could be a little daunting. And honestly, I'm still figuring this out. And I feel like calling myself out on it is just absolutely necessary because I definitely don't have all the answers. That being said, the Bible isn't condemning homosexuality. The Bible is actually condemning pedophilia. And of course, now, after New Testament, within the current moment, it is not exactly seen as an acceptable practice for men who are the ages of, say, a college student and anyone older than, to have relations with an individual who is younger than them, say like still in primary school, elementary, or younger than, because we know the destructive damage that can happen with that results from that trauma. And it's like abuse of power and position. It's something that, thankfully we have learned from some of our past and history to realize that there's a reason why we have people wait until a certain time frame in their life in order to do something, because it takes, yes, age, but also experience and understanding to use whatever tools that are out there responsibly. And whenever we talk about the condemning acts for people just based on who they love, and as long as it's written within the book of love, why on earth are we condemning people for something that we individually do not do with our own lives? That does not impact our lives. That impacts their life. Now, if they're doing so within the book of falsehoods, and it is hurtful, and it is painful, and it is evil, then yeah, there will be consequences for that. Generally speaking, there should be. And unfortunately, there are people who are, world leaders within the world and people of influence and power or position who have taken it upon themselves to voice their, abilities that they are just not touchable. The rules don't apply to them. That is completely untrue. The rules definitely apply to them. They just have clever ways of getting around the system that is put in place for a very good reason. So the next time someone or something says something to you that, questions that, that part of yourself, like, that doesn't sound right. I don't like the way that feels whenever I hear that. Then have that as an opportunity for growth. Like that, those are the times that we need to actually discuss it and talk about it and actually have these conversations. How can we have growth if we have the avoidance of speaking to one another just based out of fear or rhetoric that one will try to overshadow or hurt another just based on whatever they have read, written, or have heard, hearsay? There's a lot that we can learn from one another, and clearly I am not great at summarizing it to a very fine-tipped point. But I'm learning. It's a work in progress. And I'm very appreciative that I am willing to take the steps to go forward, to better understand what my gifts are and my talents and my abilities. Because believing in yourself is definitely one of the best things that you can do. And once you're able to have that love within yourself, it has then the opportunity to overflow and be there for others. So as I take this down here, and then I will review and see if any of this recorded, because I have no idea. And then maybe I'll share it. I'm just excited to see what the next steps will be. I have no idea. But what I do know is that so far from what I've read within the Bible, it does not speak of, condemning people who love differently than you, except for if they're hurting our kids. I think we all can agree on that, right? It seems relevant. Things are seeming to come full circle, and it is up to us to be the best versions of ourselves. Dare we repeat history then if we do not? I leave it with that, and I hope that you, I don't know, follow me, don't follow me. Feel free to participate in conversations. It doesn't matter to me. It's whatever you feel called to do. And, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's have some critical thinking to actually take pause upon our everyday and see what's out there, because you don't know until you try. So take care, and wishing much love and peace to you. Bye.